it made me wonder for the reboot if real snakes will be used.
We will, of course, be motion capturing all the snakes and then putting them digitally into the movie.
Sold.
It's the entire cast of Cats. We just brought everyone back and they're snakes this time.
It's a digital scale technology.
Yeah.
In 2017, Universal Studios announced the birth of a new shared universe of monster movies, bringing their classic horror icons into the contemporary franchise film landscape. But after the critical and financial failure of its first installment, the project was indefinitely abandoned. Now, in 2022, the powers that be have called upon one pulp horror devotee and one snarky film critic to unearth the concept. I'm Dylan Roth.
And I'm Dalton DeShane.
Are you afraid of the dark universe?
Hello and welcome back to Are You Afraid of the Dark Universe? I am one half of your host, Dalton DeShane.
And I am the other disembodied half of your host, Dylan Roth.
Welcome to yet another episode of the show where we attempt to revive Universal Studios' failed Dark Universe project by pitching one movie at a time until we grow to become the horror version of the Marvel Universe is basically our goal, except we're hoping to keep the quality peak going longer.
Here's the thing. Their time is up, right? I mean, as we record this, Guardians 3 has just come out. I'm hearing great things. Dalton and I are both seeing it tomorrow, but separately.
We don't hang out outside of the podcast.
No, we are actually not allowed to do that. And
we don't enjoy it.
No, this is for you that we do this. But we're in the horror boom right now. The superheroes are on the way out, and horror movies are on the way up.
Gods and monsters.
That's right.
We keep telling you this.
And
although
so
now James Gunn is stealing that for his DC universe.
Yeah.
So I guess
he's our
trying
enemy
to take
now.
The baton back.
But this is not the only time that we'll be mentioning James Gunn on the show, because here's the thing. Take yourself back, project your mind to a happier time, in like 2013 or so.
Happier for me.
And superhero movies, for me, not so much. But
okay. I don't know where this tangent is going. I like it.
Okay.
I'm along for the ride.
So the superhero boom is still on the. It feels like it should be over at any second.
I feel like I'm there
because the Avengers already happened. The Dark Knight trilogy is over, but somehow through fucking dark magic, Marvel Phase 2 is like good. And in the same year, you get Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and the weirdest fucking thing you can imagine being a blockbuster, which is Guardians of the Galaxy, which is an obscure enough comic book property that I, a fucking Marvel nerd for a while, had no familiarity with them at all. But apparently, the way this came about was, as they were getting ready to continue the Marvel Universe past the Avengers, past the original kind of assumed expiration date, if you're anybody but Kevin Feige, they brought in various different storytellers and asked them, what do you want to do? And
the director of Tromeo and Juliet said,
Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, granted,
I'm sorry, the writer of Tromeo and Juliet.
I believe that there was already a Guardian script in development from, and I've forgotten her name. She got.
We're getting in the weeds. It's fine.
The point is, we are at that point in our Dark Universe's life cycle now, where we have gone through all of the obvious candidates. We've made Frankenstein. We've done our Mummy sequel.
Yes.
We've done everything through the fucking Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
Right? We've done every classic Universal monster except for the Hunchback of Notre Dame,
which we will get to. We will get to the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Be a monster, but Dalton says we're going to do it. So, but we're at the point now where it's time to throw open the gates and see what deep cuts from the Universal Library are worthy of being revived and planted into what is now a pre-sold franchise.
Yeah, the thing is, Universal, we spoke to our corporate overlords just yesterday, and they are loving the reception to your Phantom of the Opera, Dylan. They have seen how everyone is freaking out about our first ever musical entry into the Dark Universe canon, and they're throwing even more money at us, which we are accepting despite the strike. We're raking it in hand over fist.
I was about to say, are we scabbing right now?
This canonically takes place 2 weeks ago, I'm deciding. And any episode after this takes place whenever the strike ends. But also, who was that talking? I don't know. It's just us right now. So they've decided to have us take pitch meetings. So they know we're busy handling the core characters, right? We've got our big world building to do. But Universal is interested in reviving some of their smaller properties, as you said, the ones nobody has heard of. In this case, it's a film that our listeners cannot even watch anywhere digitally, and I want to thank our guests for that, making that very accessible for our audience to watch this movie we're going to be talking in depth about. It can be found illicitly online, and you can buy a Blu-ray for $17 on Amazon. So... let's get into the pitch. Let me introduce our guest writers for today. Our first guest is a cartoonist and illustrator whose work can be seen in The Nib, as well as their book, The Antifa Super Soldier Cookbook, and their upcoming graphic novel, Boys Weekend, out June 6th via Pantheon Books. And our second guest is a correspondent for Eater, as well as the author of the essay collection Crystal Clear, Reflections on Extraordinary Talismans for Everyday Life, Mattie Lubchansky and Jaya Saxena. Welcome to the Dark Universe.
Hello, we're here.
Hello.
You pronounced both of our names wrong because the S's, there's 7 of them.
Yeah.
I just heard a strange hissing from your side of the...
Yeah. That's the guy we keep under our desk here.
Yeah. It'll make sense later.
It'll make sense.
Oh,
Later.
what is that?
I'm very sorry about the accessibility of this thing. I didn't realize it was not anywhere to be streamed until 3 days ago, which, if you're listening canonically, that's 2 weeks and 3 days ago.
Yes.
If you're listening, just text Dalton and
I have
he'll
a
send
link.
you the movie.
Actually, if you're a patron, we might,
We can't say
I
anything
can't
more.
legally talk about that, but
Yeah.
we might do a fun streaming night that will be relevant to this episode. Streaming.
All right, for anybody who has not looked at the title of this episode, our guests are here to pitch a remake of the 1973 Universal horror film entitled
That is 7 S's.
That is a capital S and 6 lowercase s's.
That's right.
That's right.
It's actually funny, if you go on Amazon, you can get this movie in about 5 different 4-pack DVDs, where they just put 4 cheap movies on one disc. I'm trying to with a bunch of other just fucking Jaws 4 or whatever, and then is one of them as well.
How did you search for it?
The copy that I have?
Because no, I'm saying putting a number of S's into a search bar, I feel like brings up weird results.
You'd be shocked to know
Putting
that
an
really
S movie.
there's actually not that much out there that starts with 7 S's.
I definitely have maybe a Mandela affected memory of renting this from a Blockbuster with my friend in high school, and it had an exclamation point. And my whole life I've been like, that movie's 7 S's and an exclamation point and Comic Sans was very burned into my brain. And now I'm not seeing the exclamation point anywhere, and I feel like so much snake assistant here. I feel totally out of my depth. I'm very confused.
I'm having the same Mandela effect, and I only heard about this movie 2 weeks ago when you told us about it, and I thought there was an exclamation point, at least on the poster. Is there no exclamation point?
Not the one I'm looking at.
It wasn't in the film.
Maybe they redid it when they realized that people weren't as excited about it as they were hoping.
Trying to sell
They
you
wanted
on
to
it.
tamp down expectations.
They changed it to a comma.
Like when you write an email and then you reread it and you're like, do I sound like an asshole here? Let's
Gotta get
add
rid of
in
one
some
of these.
exclamation points just to make it clear. So let's talk first about, because I'm sure our viewers are not super familiar. This is basically a movie with a very simple premise, and that premise is that snakes are fucking cool.
Yeah. The premise that snakes are cool, and what if a doctor read through Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass and took away from that text that humans should actually be snakes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there an alternate explication of Walt Whitman's poetry than that?
I don't think so.
I think he got the right idea.
I'm so glad I can't read because I can't be exposed to that kind of stuff.
All right. For once, I'm not the only illiterate person on the show. Mattie.
Solidarity.
Hell yeah.
But not to the writers who were scabbing for.
No, we're in the past.
All right,
hasn't happened yet.
Sorry. Solidarity in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Brothers and sisters.
Best of luck to our comrades who are probably going to strike soon.
I do kind of think that the plot, the mad scientist aspect of this feels almost secondary to, I feel like the movie really just wants to tell you snake facts. Like, there's a lot
Yeah.
of just like, hey, did you know this about snakes? And like, look at them. Like, this one's cool.
Yeah. I was going to say, my absolute favorite thing about this movie is right up front. It's just like all these snakes are real. And everyone who filmed it was an insane amount of danger. It's like the no animals were harmed, but it's like animals were harmed. They were.
They're
And you're
doing
gonna
the
watch
snake
it.
version of Roar, right? The lion movie where Jan de Bont got scalped.
That's right.
I don't think anyone got scalped on this one.
They got snaked.
You're just watching someone handle snakes for most of this movie.
And it is cool.
Yeah.
Like,
It is.
Here's a thing about this. Apparently, Howard Thompson's review for the New York Times
mhm.
said that this
The New
movie
York Times reviewed this.
was this is a major studio release.
Yeah.
The film is a surprise. And one of the things that Howard Thompson praised the movie for was that it sustains a scholarly, informative attitude towards the world of snakes.
It feels like a fifth grade science project for large chunks of it.
Yeah,
It does.
it's that middle portion of Moby Dick where he's just kind of like, here's some whale facts for you.
It made me
These
think
are
about
these
my own
fish are
life.
off the chain, I tell you.
It made me, and I will get more into this in probably the second half when we start hearing your pitch, but it made me wonder for the reboot if real snakes will be used, because these days we get a lot of CGI animals in movies. This was one of my big issues with the Candyman remake. I am on record on Letterboxd as saying there's nothing scary about a CGI bee. They are just glossy and weightless. It is a very different experiencing a little CGI bee stinging someone than seeing literal dozens of them coming out of a man's mouth. You know?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I have two points here, and that is one, a CGI fly can be scary if you've seen SS Rajmouli's Ega. Number one, so go watch that. Number two,
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Number two, we will of course be motion capturing all the snakes and then putting them digitally into the movie.
Sold.
Great. Have you cast the motion capture actor? Are we gonna get?
It's Andy.
Andy. It has
It's
to
the
be.
entire cast of Cats. we just brought everyone back and they're snakes this time.
It's digital scale technology.
Yeah.
And an original song by Taylor Swift. We're gonna be doing this all episode.
The whole time.
All right, so let's talk about what drew you to this project. Why?
It seemed goofy.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
I actually am very much a baby when it comes to horror films. So
Okay.
I feel like the kind that I can watch are like the 70s low budget, just like you cannot possibly be scared of anything going on here because it's all made of cardboard.
Yes.
Or it's the same way it's like no one's scared of a CGIB. It's like no one is afraid of like cardboard blood. Or like, I don't
Cardboard blood.
Yeah.
That blood's made of cardboard, and I'm
You
not
know-
convinced.
But yeah, I think it just seemed weird more than
Yeah.
anything. But I was certainly expecting more plot, I guess.
It
Less
is
a very
of
slow
if they
movie.
made a movie of just the middle of Moby Dick, as you were saying.
Because I remember watching this when I was a teenager and being obsessed with it in the way that, like, I mean, I don't know how it works today because I'm not young anymore. And nowadays, but when I was a kid, the way that you would find weird media, like some guy would hand you a CD on the street, and it would be weird as hell, and you remember it forever. Or you find something strange in the Blockbuster and you rent it, and then you're obsessed with it for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And this was very much one of those movies where I definitely did not remember nothing happening in it. I remembered like the vague overall plot, and I was like, oh, we'll watch that again. And there must be more stuff that I didn't remember. And the answer to that is no, I did not remember.
You kept on insisting to me the entire movie that it was about to pop off.
That's right.
Every time I was just sort of like, this isn't really going anywhere. You're like, the back third of this
It's crazy.
is bonkers.
It is.
And then I paused, I think, to go to the bathroom, and there were 15 minutes left. And I was like, when does this happen?
The last 15
And
minutes
then
really
the last
pops
15
off.
minutes, some stuff happens, but I was like, that's
Stuff
a
happens.
lot.
Yeah, it's a 3-act structure where the first act is 10 minutes, the middle act is an hour, and the back act, the third act is 15 minutes.
Sometimes our movies end up like that, actually.
Ah.
That's not, I'm not pointing fingers at you, both of our movies.
You did it with your eyes.
No, I was looking at you for confirmation. This is a movie that, like, it is shocking to find out that this is a Universal picture because it feels so much like a small Studio B. I was shocked to learn this was never done on Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah,
3000.
it's indistinguishable from the kind of things that they do.
I had a panic halfway through us watching it. And I was like, oh, fuck, is there an MST3K of this? And I'm like stepping on their stuff. No.
It seems like there should be. And it's the kind of movie that Joe Don Baker would fit right in. And actually, there's several MST3K connections here for the real heads out there.
This is the cinematic debut of Reb Brown,
who you may know as Blast Hard Cheese from Space Mutiny, aka Bob Johnson.
No, don't ask me to tell you his actual name, but we do have a follower on Twitter who was so excited to hear that we were doing this movie because it is Reb Brown's first film.
He went on to star in Space Mutiny and also played Captain America in the 2 TV movie adaptations in the 70s.
And here's the cool thing. This movie, it's like Reb Brown arrived fully formed on the scene because Reb Brown does the 2 things that he does throughout his career in this movie. He rides a motorcycle and he screams half of his lines. He screams like this. Yes. And it's like,
That's my Reb Brown impression.
I can't believe, like, when was the last time someone just like appeared in a film and their whole deal was just, it was like Scarlett Johansson and Lost in Translation. It's just like, wow, this person has arrived.
The director also did 2 MST3K films, Night of the Blood Beast and Attack of the Giant Leeches, were this director's earlier movies. He just loves a creature flick, and I respect that. To sort of walk through what plot there is, the movie is about a herpetologist named Dr. Stoner, which as far as I could tell was not a tongue-in-cheek joke.
No, he's a drinker, but not a weedsman.
Yeah, and it is not treated as a gag at any point.
There's like no reference to weed, I feel like.
He's just a guy named Dr. People can be named Dr. Stoner, and that's okay.
That's true.
People can be named Dr. Stoner. I think if you're listening and you are Dr. Stoner, MD of Chevy Chase, Maryland, I'm so sorry. This must be horrible to hear, and we all apologize.
And we know you listen to this show, and we appreciate your support.
We know because we have the IP data of everyone who listens to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Dalton handed us a printed list before we came on.
Yes.
We had to prove that we had some legs. Otherwise, there's no way the 2 of them are coming on the show.
Mattie and Jaya now have all of your social security numbers.
Thank you.
But they're trustworthy. So I'm looking at my notes here, trying to remember what happens. I have written down that at some point, Dr. Stoner describes being a herpetologist by just saying, "I'm into snakes."
And boy, is he.
Yeah,
he really is a little too much. He's college. They're in college, right? These students.
I believe they're in college wherever you take Snakes 102 or whatever. Because the first scene is like he's loading something creepy into the back of a truck, and then you go to this classroom, and this teacher is talking about snakes, and there are photos of snakes on the wall. And there's stuff about snakes written on the chalkboard. He's
drawn like very, very detailed like scale patterns of snakes in chalk on the chalkboard.
But also I think they're all supposed to be, is it supposed to be grad school? Like
they
what
all
class
act like high schoolers. Like they act like a high school clique. There's like the bully and the cute girl. And
right. There's like they're passing notes in class. Who passes notes in grad school? Like,
but at the same time, these are all very clearly adults. And also there is a work study program where you go and live with the herpetologist for like an indeterminate amount of time.
You can just pluck you out of your Yeah, you can just pluck you out of your semester.
Yeah.
Great. You live with me now and we study snakes.
So we have these 2 college professors. We have actually Dr. Stoner's not necessarily a professor. He's a researcher. And he goes to check in with the university that gives him his grant, where this is what's the name of the other one? Dr. Davidson. It's a first name.
Dr. Attitude.
Dr. Daniels.
Dr. Daniels, yeah.
Dr. Daniels. Did anybody else catch that, like, they were hinting that Dr. Daniels is like a sex creep?
Yes, it's one of the first things that we learn about
the first thing you know about
the girl.
him.
He like caresses her arm, and that's when I was like, I hope this is college.
And maybe that's something they do in order to kind of signal that we're not supposed to feel as bad when something terrible happens to him. But also, it's 1973, so it's probably just considered cool and normal.
Yeah, I don't. But then, like, no other reference was made to that, and I have no idea, what we're supposed to do.
Is it the movie's only attempt at a misdirect because he doesn't like Dr. Stoner, and you're like, as the viewer, you're supposed to be like, do I like this guy? Or what? Like, what's his deal? But it's like, but the guy that doesn't like him is a creep. So maybe he's cool.
Yeah, he's not.
Maybe
he's not caressing the students. He's
Yeah,
just
maybe I'm giving
The
this.
movie made one choice.
Yeah, maybe I'm giving the screenwriter this a little too much credit.
Maybe that was the
Let's
actor.
keep doing that.
The actor that played Dr. Daniels, I think, just went up to the director and was like, "What if I like touched her arm in this take?"
I establish I'm one of those hot professors. Again,
Yeah.
it's 1973. The attitude around this may have been to establish that he's cool, which for us isn't working.
We're like, he's like an Indiana Jones type, you know? His students want to fuck him.
Yeah. So anyway, Dr. Stoner shows up at this college because he needs to get his grant renewed. And Dr. Daniels is skeptical as to whether or not this is going to happen. But they both know that Dr. Stoner's research is going to save the human race from the coming apocalypse.
Do they both know that? I feel like Dr. Daniels is kind of like...
All right, Daniels is aware that that's Dr. Stoner's goal, but he doesn't know what it is that Dr. Stoner is doing. And neither do we, the audience, although we can probably guess. But it'll take us a really, really, really long time to find out exactly what the plan is.
Yeah.
But
he's turning them into snakes.
Okay, hang on now.
Hey, spoilers.
Here's
Spoiler alert.
the thing that I want to, since we're talking about this. All right, so Dr. Dr. Stoner. Spooner is the one from iRobot. Dr. Stoner, he needs a new sort of intern to help with his experiments.
Because Tim went... By the way, Tim McGraw is the name of
Is that supposed to be his name?
That
I
is
didn't catch that.
the student that goes missing is named Tim McGraw. And maybe he just left to start a music career.
That's it.
He's gone
That's what
missing.
Dr. Stoner says when he comes back to the college, being like, "I need fresh blood."
His voice was too he crooned too well for Snake for herpetology work. I got him an agent and sent him off to Nashville.
So we got a high school junior named Brad Paisley to come in.
So he gets a volunteer from the student group, or I guess kind of volunteers someone. This guy, David, played by Dirk Benedict, who would go on to be the original Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica. This is Dirk Benedict's big break.
Really?
Yes. Wow. If it can be said to be anyone's big break, it's his. And so David goes to live with Dr. Stoner and Dr. Stoner's marriageable daughter, and is continually under the pretense of receiving immunizations to various venoms. David is being gradually transformed into some kind of snake man.
Here's an interesting thing also, is they keep referring to Dr. Stoner's research and how important it is. And his research seems to be milking snakes every couple of days and mailing the venom away, which isn't really research so much as it's milking snakes.
Which he likes to do for a crowd?
No.
Is that
the
normal?
research is giving vaccines to one person at a time under no other controlled conditions.
That's right.
Possibly many months apart.
Yeah, what is... David, bless his heart, just the most empty-headed himbo in cinema history, just not a thought in his mind as he's getting these shots. And you know, Dr. Stoner is like, "Oh, by the way, this you might have hallucinations tonight based on that." And then he just dreams a bunch of Bosch paintings.
Yeah.
It's
like, you might have hallucinations. Lucky you. And it's just, he's like a creep about it.
Yeah.
I mean, are they trying to do some sort of like, because that he sees what is it, the Garden of Earthly Delights, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is what he starts seeing. And it's like, is that like some fucking, is he trying to do like a Garden of Eden thing?
I think so, because there are references to the Genesis sort of the snake's role in the Genesis story in one of Dr. Stoner's ravings. So like I feel like that has to be deliberate. But whatever the thematic connection is, it doesn't really land, because this movie is not about really anything other than, yes, as established, snakes are very cool.
Yeah.
And also, we have some budget for makeup effects, and we're going to get to it. Oh, gosh.
There's some decent body horror in this, I think.
There is. His skin starts peeling.
When Dr. Stoner is like peeling off his entire back in one move, I was kind of like, damn, that's pretty impressive. How'd they do that?
That's like, cool.
Yeah.
It seems like a simple effect, but it is disturbing to see.
It looks weird. I think that's the kind of thing where you can just kind of put like a thin rubber cemented sort of adhere onto it, and you peel it off like that. But we're not a special effects podcast here. We're just going to appreciate that it looks cool. But and over time, so for a while, he just has some very small, barely noticeable changes that Dr. Stoner can keep telling him are expected side effect. Like first, part of his skin is peeling. And
Normal.
then his temperature regulation is weird. And then the bridge of his nose is getting wider. And that's all totally normal.
And his eyelids are starting to like get smaller and like peel back, and
I missed that part.
normal things.
Yeah, but the thing is, those effects really are kind of subtle. Like, I appreciate that those kinds of weird changes to his face are small enough that you actually can look at him and not think, oh, he's becoming a snake man. You'd be like, oh, he's kind of puffy. He's having a reaction to something.
And to be fair, I had most of those with the Pfizer.
When I thought it was a weird and I'd say honestly prescient part of the movie where he turns to the camera and he starts doing that sort of like twitching that like conservatives do on TikTok. And he says like, I got the vaccine and then now I can't work. And he's sort of like doing this.
Yeah, when the cops show up and he's able to scare them off by like waving a bag of fentanyl at them, and then they all just kind of fall on the floor and start foaming at the mouth.
Yeah.
Don't show this movie to anti-vaxxers. They will take it as fact.
This is a documentary.
Yeah.
I also love while David is there and like quote unquote doing research, which I don't think you ever see him do anything but get shots. So like not even like cleaning the tanks. He's not like handling snakes or anything.
And
But
flirting with the daughter.
Yeah, but then you watch Dr. Stoner tame a cobra in front of a paying audience at their farm in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, who's driving to see this?
It seems like the daughter was driving around town to round up the townsfolk so they can watch her dad almost die.
Yeah.
I love that Dr. Stoner's kind of a showboat. I don't think that's something herpetologists normally do. I don't think they're usually like, hey, I'm going to put my work on display. It reminds me of, this is a tangent I haven't gone on this show, but I like to talk about often, about how they used to display premature babies at Coney Island.
Yes.
Because that was the only way the guy could fund his research on like how to do incubation and stuff. So like you could pay like 25 cents to just go see premature
really
babies.
Small babies.
During your beach day. And he like saved thousands of lives. And that's what Dr. Stoner is doing. And I think he's a hero.
Well, he's saving not just thousands, he's saving billions of lives, Dalton.
That's right.
Billions.
Yeah,
all of us.
Let's get into what Dr. Stoner's plan turns out to be. It seems as if for all but the last 2 minutes of the movie, that Dr. Stoner's plan is to turn human beings into evolved snake-human hybrids that will be more resilient during the coming energy crisis.
We find out that that's what happened to Tim because we see him in a circus freak show.
Yeah, he's the guy who he's in the cage in the beginning of the film, and he's been sent off to the carnival. And again, this is a very bored town. The carnival is like super packed and very busy. But that is what it seems to be. That's a failed experiment because he didn't make it all the way to being a snake man. He ended up being more snake than man.
He's got no arms. He can't move or talk. He can, however, weep.
Yes.
Human tears.
And kind of honk softly.
What was it? He doesn't have his legs like end after his thigh, but he does have a human butt.
Yes. This effect was accomplished by dressing up frequent horror effects guy Noble Craig, who is a triple amputee and shows up in various roles like this.
It wasn't Tim McGraw.
No. Anyway, so now at this point in the film, the third act really belongs to Christina, the daughter, because she's now investigating what's going on because David is incapacitated because he's gradually turning into a snake man. But
David, who she is crucially had sex with.
Yes.
At this point.
And that's considered very dangerous.
They don't really do they give us an answer on whether like she's going to have a snake baby?
Well, Dalton, that's a segue for later.
Okay. We're going to do a requel.
I like the idea. I hope this doesn't spoil anything you have, but going into the movie studio and writing "s" on a board and then adding an 8th S and putting the dollar sign through it.
Yeah, spoilers for later, but yes, it is a Lego sequel.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited.
But the final
sequel.
twist of this film to me is that after we see various sort of iterations of the makeup of Dirk Benedict being turned into a giant snake man, it turns out that the final phase of this experiment is not for Dirk Benedict to be a giant snake man. It's for him to turn into a normal ass snake.
Just a regular.
He's just a snake that Dr. Stoner insists has the intelligence of a man. But he cannot talk.
No. Despite all of it's like he spends like months turning into like a half snake, half man. and then turns into a full regular king cobra in about 30 seconds, including his entire body shrinking to the size of a cobra.
And
Do some incredible
his limbs
special
all
effects.
fusing together into his torso,
Mm-hmm.
which we don't have this technology, but if we did, I don't think that's how it would happen. I don't think everything would just glue together slowly.
What do
I feel like
you, what do
you
you
lose
think they
mass
just
by-
fall off?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you lose mass by the stuff falling off of you.
Okay.
And then your stuff falls off of you. Your tailbone grows longer,
Okay.
so you lose your butt.
This is simple anatomy.
Genitals all loop in somewhere.
The cloac eyes.
The cloac eyes.
A new process that we're working on here.
Your arms don't just start fusing to the sides of your chest.
Of course not. That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. Now, yeah. And that's how I'd turn a person into a snake.
I also, regarding his plan, he says that the reason he's doing this is because human civilization is going to end in 50 years. And I would just like to point out
now.
this
I mean, he
year
was
is the
right.
50th anniversary
It is.
of this movie coming out, and he's
Imagine-
not wrong.
Imagine how well equipped we'd be for society kind of tearing itself apart at the seams right now if we were all snakes.
Yeah,
If we were just in one big pile, keeping each other warm.
Yeah, I think
This
that
is
one
what
of the
community
key
looks
problems
like.
that we have in our current society is the ability to manipulate tools. I think that if we no longer
Yeah.
had that capacity, we'd be in better shape as a species.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm cutting my thumbs off.
A snake can't launch a nuke, and that's what Dr. Stoner
Or-
says.
a snake could launch a nuke.
Snake.
A snake with
A snake could push a button if it was as smart as a man, which
yeah.
these snakes are.
I'm thinking about it's a snake in a little suit towing the nuclear football. Isn't that so cute?
They got two little snakes opening briefcases at the same time and then pressing two buttons at the
that's
same
so
time.
good.
They have little ties.
Let's not get into
suits.
Oppenheimer spoilers.
This is 50 years down the line, we'd be making Oppenheimer starring snakes.
It's a post-credit scene at the end of Universal's Oppenheimer that sets up this sequel, which is just Oppenheimer scratching out his notes for the nuclear bomb and just drawing a snake.
Or he draws out the bomb and he turns around and there's a boardroom full of snakes nodding enthusiastically.
It's going to be like the end of the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. It
Yeah.
turns
Yeah.
out Snake Lincoln.
Big snake
Just their
statue.
little rattles
Yes.
like this.
The big snake Abraham Lincoln. Yeah.
Before we take our break and come back to hear your Lego sequel to which is perfect, 50-year anniversary. That's the perfect time to be
If people-
pitching.
Here we
this.
go.
Yeah, we gotta
clamoring
fast track
for it.
this
I can't
thing.
go outside without people asking.
There's a
me,
lot
right?
of unanswered questions.
That's true. I do want to take a moment and talk about all of the snakes in the movie because, look, they're building to the big final transformation, right? As we talked about, that's nothing really happens until the last 15 minutes where he turns into the snake. But the stuff that happens until
Then
then
a cop
is,
shoots him.
Yeah, and then the snake gets fucking murked by a shotgun.
there's a cobra gets its head blown off by a shotgun.
Yeah, and then a second cobra is about to die. The cobra with the intelligence of a man is about to have that done to him.
A second
When the movie
cobra
ends.
has hit the film. Yeah, it's the snakes are really cool though. Like the stuff that happens before that is mostly snakes biting people and killing them. Dr. Stoner just goes fully crazy and is like, "Oh, this bully hurt my snake," and so we get a scene of the bully. I forget his name. Blast Hard Cheese.
Yeah, it's Reb Brown's character.
Is in the shower, very joyfully singing a public domain tune to himself. I don't remember what it is, but it's something like "She'll Be Coming Around the Mountain." Or
It's like
It
it should be
is-
coming around the
It is
mountain.
exactly that because then Dr. Stoner is whistling that to himself when he rides home.
yeah, and he throws a venomous snake into the shower, and there's an awesome like slow motion shot of the snake recoiling with the water splashing around it, and I was like, God damn, snakes are cool.
Ooh, yeah.
Dr. Stoner himself gets bitten by a black mamba in the movie.
Yeah.
And
Right.
he's like, I'm too slow for this these days, old friend, he says to a snake. A
But he's
different
like,
snake.
whatever, I got enough shots in me for like 10 black mambas. I also love that he has that one. It's a boa constrictor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's his
It's-
friend.
That's his
Yeah.
friend that seems to only drink whiskey.
That's right.
Yes, this movie has a drunk snake in it, and that kicks ass.
And that's the one that the bully guy kills, right?
Yes, and that's like his friend. And if we were to, if we really want to play like the three-dimensional chess of this, then we could imagine that this
We
is
do.
actually the first successful test of the
Yes.
snake thing, and that Henry, right? His name is Harry.
Yeah, that this is Dr. Stoner's best friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
That he did this to, and so they're just drinking buddies.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, actually. I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, there was now I'm just looking at my notes and bringing up random shit. I should probably just let us go to a break. But we were talking earlier about the Adam and Eve stuff, and there is a very direct moment where David and the daughter are like swimming naked in right? They go skinny dipping together, right? And then it fades from them naked in the water to a shot of a cobra. And I was like, God damn, that's some good. That's a solid Bible reference. I'm gonna
Yeah.
I also want to note that during this scene, as the two co-eds are running down to the water nude, the plants in front of the camera are very obviously superimposed in post to specifically block out naughty bits. And it is extremely clumsy and very funny.
Is there a nude cut out there? Is there this director's
We generate a nude
computer?
Somebody send it in.
Send nudes.
I have to wonder also if every time we say the name of this film, we are like peeking the mic or hurting our listeners.
I hope so.
It's just ASMR. It's fine. They're gonna. It's gentle. This is gonna be the episode to go to sleep to. Is there anything else we want to cover from our recap of? Have we in a roundabout
I'm sure all the
way
listeners
summarized the film?
got that, and it makes perfect sense to them.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that was very legible, right? For this film that you
movie
cannot
that
watch.
they know exactly what happens in
Well,
it now.
the movie just sort of vibes for like an hour and 20 minutes, and then, like I said famously, shit does pop off for about 30 to 45 seconds.
The cobra getting its head blown off was a
that
jaw-dropping
does count
moment.
as shit popping off.
Particularly-
I will say that.
Given the
It literally
disclaimer at the
pops off.
beginning of the film that says all of these snakes are real. And then it ends with like a freeze frame of a snake's head getting blown up. I'm a little bit concerned.
I'm assuming that wasn't a real snake, but
I
it
have
looked
that was a
to
fake
trust it was. This is a Universal picture. There would have to have been somebody on set to ensure they only blew the heads off of the fake snakes.
The American Snake Protection Center for America was on it. The ASPCA. Thank you.
The ASPCA.
Yeah, the ASPCA.
Keep Alec Baldwin away from the snakes.
all right. With that, we're going to go over a break. We're going to go to a break and slap Dalton around.
Yes, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, Mattie and Jaya are going to pitch us a modern Lego sequel of Sssss, with the hopes that it will be greenlit and turned into one of our Dark Universe films. Will we have our first snake body horror picture added to our canon? Stick around with us after this, and we will find out.
I'm Tom Zalatnal,
And I'm Teffer Adjemian.
and we're the hosts of the No Bad Food podcast.
No Bad Food is a show about great food and the people who love to make and eat it. Our mandate is simple: to explore, taste, and learn about food in ways that celebrate all the things that make it great.
Every week, we dig into a different dish, meal, ingredient, cuisine, or piece of food media, exploring the history and culture around it, sharing favorite recipes, and learning from our wonderful guests.
The only rule?
You gotta love it.
After all, there's no such thing as bad food.
Find us in the Pod Cavern or wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Interior, a dark church. A priest stands at the altar, telling an assembled crowd about the parable of Adam and Eve and the snake and the tree of knowledge and all the, the stuff. Yeah, that stuff.
Mhm.
The camera pans over to a young child, seemingly really taking it in. What's the tint of his skin? Is it slightly green? You can't tell. Is that the light? Perhaps a trick of it? I don't know. His mother, a redhead with glasses wearing a lab coat, but looking a little older, holds him close. And in the back of the room, a sort of like lumpy silhouette wriggles out of the back. Gentlemen, I present to you SSSSSSSS! Exclamation point, Question mark? Parentheses 2024.
So is this plural? Is there an extra S to make
It's
it plural?
esses.
Maybe
There's an apostrophe in there.
When Donald Sutherland is at the press junket, he's going to say esses when he's talking to the press. Yes.
Just to be clear, she was wearing her lab coat in church. Is that right?
Yeah, she's a doctor.
Okay. Her Sunday best.
How else do you know who she is?
I'm trying to, it's called visual storytelling, Dalton.
It's like a cartoon. They're wearing the same outfit all the time.
I was asking for clarification, not criticism.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure. That's a great note. Later in the movie, she opens her closet and you do see there's only lab coats in there. So it is explained.
It's
Like
Dr. Daria Morgendorfer.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love the cold open. We're making the religious allegory more explicit this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So again, we assume you, the board, are all deeply familiar with
The hit film.
the hit 1973 films.
Not a child alive. It's not
So
seen this movie.
as you know, the daughter and the assistant did have sex.
Yes.
This movie, now I'm realizing this movie's got to take place in like the 80s.
Yeah, it takes place in the 80s.
It takes place in the 80s.
Great.
This sex has resulted
A movie starts in the 80s.
the movie starts in the 80s.
The 80s are huge right now, by the way, especially 80s horror. This is like Stranger Things, right?
Stranger Things.
Yes.
Stranger Things. Well, the movie starts in the 80s because, right, this shot of this child in church is in the 80s.
Okay.
But then you see this child as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
This child is the child of the union between Dr. Stoner's daughter and the assistant David, who turned into a king cobra.
Right.
And then was murked by cops.
Famously, when the two of them had sex, Dr. Stoner was really, really nervous. He was like, tell me you haven't had sex, because David had already gotten a bunch of these quote unquote vaccines that were slowly turning him into a snake.
Yes.
So he is already some percentage of snake DNA that he has passed on to this child.
It goes
Now,
right to the balls.
It goes right to the arms and legs slowly fusing together. No, because this child, David wasn't fully inoculated yet, and because he had a fully human mother.
It's like a quarter snake.
A quarter snake, something like that.
Okay.
So he just sort of looks a little sickly often.
But he has all the abilities of a snake.
But he doesn't know this.
No.
Very crucially, as an adult, he has become a herpetologist in his own right, just because he's following the family business. But he thinks it's because there's this long history of everybody in his family being very interested in snakes, and he grew up around them.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he can understand them and relates to them better because he's been around them his whole life. But he is not aware yet that he has snake DNA in his blood.
And in fact, his grandfather's old snake, Henry, who loves a drink, does live in the house with him, of course.
Wait, I thought Henry died. Doesn't Henry die in the first one?
Does Henry die?
Henry dies.
Who's Henry? The snake?
Henry's the big python snake.
Oh, sorry. I forgot about that. Strike that
there
from
was
the
a
record.
different big snake that killed the bully.
That's right.
Then.
But that's
Sorry.
okay, because what we'll do,
Killed the
we
cop.
will pay
I'm so
tribute.
sorry.
We will make sure that there's a lingering shot of a headstone paying tribute to Henry.
I'm
That's
sorry.
visible
When I
around
said
the
Henry's
house.
in the house, I meant a stuffed Henry.
Hanging on the wall, yes. And this will be crucial because the fans would riot if we were to ignore a critical piece of lore like that. So we got to make sure we get this right for the fans.
Yeah, like there's a point where David Jr. walks over to the stuffed Henry and does refill the whiskey glass that's sitting at the foot of it, sort of like a little shrine, and he goes, sorry, old friend, even though he never knew him.
Yeah.
Pours it out.
He just knows that this is an important family member.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think when we were first thinking about this, we were envisioning almost like a young Frankenstein-ish thing where like, here's this guy who's in this version doesn't really know about his past and is just trying to be a straightforward herpetologist. The problem lies with Tim.
With Tim?
Oh, we're bringing back,
Tim.
for those of you who don't remember, the iconic character of Tim from Sssssss. This is the previous assistant to Dr. Stoner, who before the events of the film is transformed into a half snake, half man, and then sold to a carnival.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Tim McGraw.
So we see, so David Jr. is doing his research, perhaps thinking about what if in the future we did have some snake-like tendencies to, for global warming, it would lower our temperatures, etc.
Kind of getting some of his grandfather's ideas.
Yeah. But you're getting more of a backstory of how he is first learning about what specific snake features would work well, how they could maybe match. He's not just showing up like the first Dr. Stoner being like, I have this idea and you never see my research.
Yeah. So like we're getting a sort of like more in-depth snake fact for the hungry fan who we all know from the first film loves snake facts. But we see Tim in his lair of the carnival with his henchmen, all the freaks that he's freed.
He's like a crime boss now.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the intervening years, I have not Googled this, but I'm pretty sure from learning from some snake facts and maybe just picking them up along the way and maybe inventing some, that whatever snake blood is in Tim is the kind of snake that will just keep growing as long as it grows to fit its enclosure.
Okay.
And so if it has no enclosure, it'll just keep going and going and going to, not infinity, but like a lot. Tim's now like 12 to 15 feet long.
He's gone Jafar mode.
He's gone Jafar mode.
Mm-hmm.
And he is, he's no longer in the circus because those type of circuses have been outlawed. But all of the people in the circus are now working for him. And he's got, this underground lair.
I was thinking either underground or a sort of traveling armored carnival train, like from Dumbo.
Oh, okay. So I was imagining like the Red Triangle Circus from Batman Returns.
That also works perfectly.
Yeah.
I do want to clarify real quick. What is the tone of this film? Are we going Young Frankenstein? Like what?
Oh no, it's. I would say it's realistic.
Okay. Are we going for body horror? Are we going for tongue-in-cheek parody? Are we going...
Oh, no. This is just straight down the middle, very realistic. I'm thinking Dark Knight.
Okay.
Full-on realism. This is all real. The science is real. It is backed up.
Lots of shades of gray just in the color palette. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brown, it's gray, it's green.
Yeah, I think anything else would be disrespectful to fans and the legacy of
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's sort of like the camera lens seems
These
like
are all real snakes and they have been hard.
Yeah, and it's sort of like, and the camera lens, is it dirty? I don't know. Like it seems like perhaps it needs to be wiped off, but we're not going to tell you.
And we're using practical snakes. Good to know.
So we're using practical snakes where we can, with modern sort of techniques. But where we can't, like I mentioned, we've developed a sort of digital scale technology, and we've already got on board. We've got Idris Elba, we've got Taylor Swift, and before you ask, yes, her snake is going to be very stacked, just like totally more than Taylor Swift in real life for some reason. Just really stacked as a snake, like huge tits.
Yeah. But I think really, I think tense. I think thrillery.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, just dark.
Is Idris Elba playing the giant Tim?
I think that works.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
He's
I think
got
that's
the deep voice for a 12-foot snake.
Yeah. I think that's about, but he's not, crucially, unlike Cats, he is not magic in this.
No,
this is a science fiction.
This
is
more
a science picture, gentlemen. Yes, that's right.
This is hard sci-fi.
Hard
sci-fi.
Hard, very hard. And, so like, for instance, like Tim, he's got some of the snake that like grows forever. And he's also got like some koi in there that had to patch it. Almost like Jurassic Park, right? And that's the mistake. It leads him growing and growing.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't going to have shit to say about this movie.
No, he's actually on board.
Oh,
no?
Great.
I'm hearing something. Oh, no. He's been fired. Sorry.
But I do think ultimately we get to a point that is almost a Charles Xavier Magneto relationship between the two. I had not worked this out before, but I do. David Jr. eventually comes to realize who he is.
Okay.
And that he and Tim, who is, terrorizing the neighborhood, seeking revenge on herpetologist departments everywhere.
Okay.
Wanting to basically destroy all snake research, and release, venom into the water supply.
That's right.
And ruin people.
Okay, so he has like a Batman villain plan where he's going to turn the whole town into snakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as like a punishment, and not as a Dr. Stoner Jr. thing of like, this is going to be great if we're all snakes. Tim is like, it's bad if we're all snakes, like me.
Mm-hmm. He's communicating all of this, by the way, through a sort of like a computer that he's hitting his face with because he doesn't have
he doesn't have speaking lines.
Yeah.
No. But it's Idris Elba's voice.
Okay, the computer is Idris Elba's voice.
Yeah. Oh,
okay.
and do not forget, this is very crucial to the character of Tim. He can weep human tears. It does almost in every scene.
Yeah. He's very upset about this whole thing. And so Dr. David Jr. eventually comes to realize, and we're happy for your notes on when exactly this happens, that he is indeed part snake. Mm-hmm. And that's why he feels like he can commune with snakes. And he has some difficulty. At some point, he almost goes really dark, but then he realizes that, he wants to maybe save humanity here.
Okay. He's torn between his snake self and his human self.
Between his snake self and his human self. But eventually...
It's the sixth kind of conflict.
He squares off against Tim.
Yeah.
Does he win? Does he lose?
You'll have to find out in... It's esses. It's 9 of them. And that one's called Tim's Lament.
So, okay. I have a couple questions. Let's dig in on this. First of all, is Dr. Stoner alive?
No, he very much is dead.
I think he dies at the end of the film
because he
gets hit by the King Cobra venom for which there is no cure. My question is Dr. Stoner
this is strange to me because where I come from, the youngest child has seen this movie 12 to 30 times. So this is odd for me for you to not remember that Dr. Stoner does die when the King Cobra bites him at minute 97.
I'm so sorry.
But a related question is Christina Stoner still around? Because then she would be the person who would be able to share, like Mom and Pa Kent.
Yes.
And are we going to recast her because Heather Menzies passed in 2017?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are going to recast her.
So that's why the glasses in the lab coat.
Mother sitting with him in church as a child because this is a Christian snake man.
Mm-hmm.
It's American values.
Yeah. Good Christian snake.
It'll play great in the heartland.
Well, to be serious, I actually like that because the idea of the serpent or evil being inside you is actually that is a good struggle for a Christian character.
Thank you for being serious.
Yeah, thank you for realizing we meant that.
Yeah, it's a serious film. It's a serious film with a serious pitch, and I'm glad that you two are being serious.
We're taking this seriously. We're
all taking this seriously.
This is the show that built a 10+ movie empire around The Mummy 2017. Okay, we are dead serious.
Mm-hmm.
I like as the thematic hook for the movie a young naive Christian boy who is reckoning with the dawning realization that evil is not a separate thing from him, but something he has to contend with inside himself. And the snake in the garden is not Tim, but rather the snake in his own blood.
That's the tagline. It's not Tim, it's him.
That's right. And we've got a focus group on call to figure out if we're allowed to make this a trans narrative or not. We're looking at them. Thumbs are down. Okay, so it's not. But it could be they're still down. Okay.
Our audience is giving emphatic thumbs up, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
And also, what is the nature of evil? As we learn through an entire new generation of cool snake facts, that there's actually quite a lot of interesting and good stuff about snakes. So it's not even that you have evil inside of you. It is that every single quality can be used for good or for evil.
Yeah, like inside of you is the ability to hear things far away through vibrations in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it built into all of us.
Everyone's got it.
It's not just for gossip. We can use it to spread love and knowledge.
You can smell things with your tongue alone.
No, for real though, I like the idea of having it be that Tim, the failed experiment, believes that the thing that has been brought out in him is evil. And that the people hurt Koba style, right, from the people who did this to him. He wants to spread that pain back into the world and be like, you made me a monster because you are monsters. I want you to feel like monsters the way that I do because you deserve it. And David has the opposite thing of, at first he agrees, like you said, like he seems like he's maybe swayed over, you and I are not so different, blah, blah, blah. And realizes that what is the thing in him that he's trained to believe is evil is actually beautiful. And maybe they don't flat out stop Tim from spreading this poison. Maybe he manages to salvage or change it or alter it so that more people, maybe not everyone, but maybe in like a mutant or Inhumans kind of way, some people in town end up having their snake DNA awakened and become super snake people.
Yeah, there's a sort of, they have a sort of like center downtown, like at the end of Black Panther. But they're turning people into 1/4 snake.
But while it seems like a nightmare at first, it's actually good.
That's right.
And they find solidarity in each other.
Walking in.
Now, I think Taylor Swift, I think we got to get her in as the love interest for David Jr.
As a snake.
I think she is I think that's the thing that ultimately helps him, is that she is one of Tim's henchmen.
Oh, interesting.
But maybe she is slightly a reluctant henchman.
I like this because, okay, so David Jr. is grappling, again, with the snake inside him. He's discovered, oh my God, there's a snake. I'm part snake. Tim is part snake. Are we the same?
Are we the same?
And meanwhile, so while he's sort of having this adventure on the dark side and, grappling with his Christian faith and his love of snakes and sort of all these different things, he meets the pretty young henchwoman played by Taylor Swift and realizes he's in love with a snake. And this is part of, like you said, what pulls him
and loving the
towards...
snake outside of him allows him to love the snake inside.
Yes,
exactly.
Because we are angling towards this being a story about self-acceptance, and especially interesting through the religious lens of, I'm not an abomination made by science. I am still one of God's creatures, even if I am part snake.
I'm so moved right now.
Yeah,
this movie is going to change people's lives.
What did the snake man not sing in God's choir?
The religious impulse of, like these evil urges you have, whether it be lust or homosexuality or whatever, that these are things you need to eradicate from yourself, right? You need to purge the snake. And that's where David starts. When he finds out he's part snake, he's like, I need to cure myself. But as he gets more involved in Tim's group and meets Taylor Swift, he's like, the journey he goes on is these things that I have been taught all my life I need to change about myself cannot be changed and must instead be embraced.
That's right. Exactly. And much like Dr. Stoner says in the films, he explains that in the Garden of Eden, the serpent is sent there to tempt Eve with the apple, the tree of knowledge. But he was the devil, yes, but he was sent by God. And I think we should all hold on to that.
You know what? I feel like that is a scene that we should even reprise in the sequel. Perhaps using a digital simulacra of the original actor.
That's right. I think so.
Like as unto a ghost in the corner
and
of a room.
I think that's a great use of technology and maybe even AI. I'm looking around for yes. Well, AI.
We're going to have a digital Strother Martin Jr.
Well, especially if this impending strike happens, this whole script will actually be written by AI. So
that's great because I think most of it already was. So
yeah, I'm liking where this is going.
I think this is a great pitch.
I like this. This is.
What do you think? Fast track.
Well, I mean, if we want to meet that 50th anniversary, we're going to have to get going really fast. But the last element remaining is, do we want to refer you back to Universal proper or to Blumhouse or to one of the other sort of partners in our conglomerate? Or do we want to try and find a way to tie this into our existing Dark Universe mythology? Because it seems like it might be kind of hard to do.
Well, here's the thing. This doesn't strictly interfere with our canon. There is nothing in our existing Dark Universe canon that says snake people can't exist. However, so far, I don't know that it's a tonal fit necessarily.
We manage a lot of different tones here in the Dark
True.
Universe.
We've
We've done
done-
everything from body horror to slapstick comedy. Again, last week we did a musical episode.
That's true. I think this is a case where we move it into development, but we have to see a script first.
Right. I
before
mean,
we
I'm
do
not,
the full
I'm not
fair.
thing.
supposing that we
let
instantly
me-
canonize it, but
Yeah.
Can I hit you with a pitch for integration?
Sure.
yes.
Okay, so say you're in phase 3
Mhm.
and you have a team up movie. It's Phantom of the Opera, 3 to 4 Wolfmen, a Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, Hunchback. They're all, they're saving the world from some peril, but they need someone with the power of snakes to complete their team. And then what you do is you introduce David Jr. in that film, and then depending on audience reaction, you introduce the Legacy sequel for Sssss. And you show us the origin story of David Jr. because fans are going to be, who is this guy? That's amazing. He can taste with his, or he can hear with his tongue or whatever.
He can go somewhere pretty cold and
He can go somewhere-
understand it better.
He can hibernate the entire winter. He can
You're proposing we
swallow
do like the
something pretty
thing
big?
where they introduced Black Panther in Captain America: Civil War.
precisely
And
that
then did-
exact model.
Okay.
Okay.
One thing I believe that all the snakes have, no matter what percentage of snake DNA you have, the first thing you get is immediately the ability to unhinge your jaw and just swallow something whole.
Anything.
So anyone could do that, and that's going to be a fun effect for the kids.
I think actually that strategy of introducing this mythology before this sequel, the best way to do that would be if they come upon the Snake Town. Our Dark Legion ends up maybe it's where the Black Lagoon has shown up next.
Maybe.
And they go to a town where they're like, wait,
Some
something's
people are
off
snake people here.
They're it's like the Western thing where they're all hiding in their houses and peeking out at the intruders. Like, who is this? Who are these interlopers?
Here's the thing, though. I feel like, and this is in your domain. It doesn't necessarily have to be in Dark Legion 2 or 3. This is so thematically in line with the Black Lagoon, which is about self-acceptance and in a very similar, one is nautical and one is amphibious and reptilian. I feel like there's potential for us to explore this in the future. And then should that happen, then we're going to have to push forward with this project. So let's keep it on the back burner. Let's.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other idea potentially. A Dr. David Stoner Jr., I guess the third, meets Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And in terms of reanimation and potentially reanimating people with snakes, I don't know. It just seems like they could have a cool time collaborating in the labs.
And thank you for being familiar with the lore as well. That's really
course.
Well, I guess because our sort of Dr. Frankenstein, though, being, here's the question. Does our creature Victor have a doctorate?
Yes, I believe our.
Because for those of you who don't know the show and our
let's explain
mythology
this
who
to
are
Mattie,
listening,
Jaya, and the new listeners who have
No
just
idea what
jumped
we're
on because
yes.
they want to hear this pitch. This episode is taking us through the roof because people want to know how we're following up the classic 1973. Our Victor Frankenstein is the monster, in a way where basically. He was a normal scientist. He did not reanimate dead bodies, but his daughter hated him and was working in that field. And when Victor Frankenstein died, his daughter reanimated his body as the creature, creating a sort of loop where Victor Frankenstein is both her father and her son.
and he's normal about it. It hasn't fucked him up at all.
And
I
so,
think that's absolutely brilliant, and I'm so thrilled for the opportunity to even be in the room with two creators like you.
Thank you.
An idea like that.
Now here's the big Dark Legion tie-in critical question is we've talked about how David Jr. his skin is slightly green. Does he have any other powers? What?
Well, we talk. No, they've been talking about it, like the
jaw.
ability to sense vibrations.
We've got sound. We've got tongue.
Okay.
I think he
Venom.
He doesn't have a forked tongue, but he can certainly, sense things a little differently. Again, he has all of his limbs, but I think he is very attuned to vibrations in the earth. Like, I think he can tell when things are coming in a slightly different way than most humans.
Yeah.
The The unhinging the jaw thing.
He's
And these
immune
just
to
sort of-
most poisons.
These just sort of manifest once he starts learning about it, or how?
These are always there, but I think it's stuff that's all within the realm potentially of human behavior, that he just thinks he's a little more sensitive to some things. He thinks his skin is naturally a little sallow. You know, he's got some like really olive undertones.
When his friends are like, "Oh my God, the sandwich is too big. How do you even bite it?" He's like, "I don't know
That's
what
right.
you're talking about."
He's
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But
He's got sort of a Spider-Man issue where he just like he can jump really high every once in a while.
yeah.
Like he can do one kind of sproingo.
And, you know, he thinks he's like prone to being cold.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
But you know, lots of people are prone to being
Always
a
wearing
little
his
bit chilly and
gloves
need to carry a
inside. Yeah.
sweater around with
He
them.
thinks he might have eczema.
Yeah.
But those are literal scales.
And there's
right?
like some
the very
things that,
begin-
like,
Yeah,
if you haven't tried, like, I don't know that I can't secrete venom from my teeth. Maybe
Yeah,
I've just
that's right.
never tried.
But it's like if your skin is like a little greenish and you've got eczema and you feel maybe particularly attuned to the movements of people around you, you should check. You might be some snake.
Jaya, in the beginning of the pitch, you implied that without knowing why, David Jr. had felt a sort of closeness or kinship with snakes. And I'm put this out there. What if once he accepts his snake nature, he can communicate with snakes and becomes
Beautiful.
kind of the Aquaman of the snake world?
I think that's right in line with what could happen here.
And
Yeah.
can command armies of snakes, like Ant-Man.
Yeah.
That would give
Yeah.
him a further utility to our team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And that would make for a great battle sequence at the end with the henchmen and the snakes and getting a lot of strangling, a lot of biting.
Yeah, and I think you can communicate. You can tap into something that's like sort of like the grand knot of snakes. You know, like into the sort of. And
we all know that that's what's at the center of the world.
That's right. Yes, that's right.
That gives us a perfect opportunity for a big battle sequence, like you were saying, Jai, in maybe Dark Legion 3, where we have Nick Morton commanding the rats and ravens, you know, of the Mummy. We have our wolf pack, and we also have the snakes. Just a whole animal kingdom rushing forth into battle against whoever the bad
Oh
guys
yes,
are.
because we could also make a callback to the first movie, which we didn't even get to. Is that horrible mongoose and the noise that it kept making?
That's right. We didn't talk about the mongoose, who's like basically the star of the movie.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah. Oh, I have a sub team up pitch for you, which, as you mentioned, is sort of a Black Lagoon Snakeopolis, which is what I'm calling the town. Matchup. But so we have
Mm-hmm.
water, we have land. What if sky? So a sort of triad of the areas of the Earth as a team up. We introduce a sort of, because at some point you're going to have to start introducing new characters into the Dark Universe that didn't previously exist at all, right? So sort of Sky Man or Woman.
I believe Universal has the rights to the birds.
Well, fantastic.
We could just integrate the birds.
Phase 4.
The birds versus the snakes, because the birds are snakes' natural predators, right? Don't birds eat snakes?
I think so.
I think it's the mongoose, but
what if we did?
The mongoose is in the post-credits sequence, I believe.
We introduce the snakes in Dark Legion 2. We do in phase 3, and then in phase 4 we get the birds.
This is opening up a whole just like Guardians of the Galaxy opened up the whole cosmic wing of the MCU.
Yes.
This is going to bring us into the animal kingdom.
Yes.
Like the zoological saga of our.
And then we get Jaws involved.
That's
in
right.
Phase 5.
It's only been a matter of time until we try to remake one of the greatest films ever made, Jaws, into our universe.
We are going to reboot Jaws in the Dark Universe.
Think about how many incredible Steven Spielberg movies are ours to ruin with under our umbrella.
Jaws versus the birds is quite a pitch that we can work up to. That can be our Kang dynasty.
This show is going to run forever,
That's right.
Dalton.
Yeah.
And what's this? It's the truck driver from that one movie. That is it?
From Duel?
From Duel? That's right.
The truck from Duel. Oh, God.
The truck from Duel is here? That's crazy.
Christine is in our purview.
Oh, Christine versus Duel would be cool.
I'm not sure if we have Duel, but we do have Christine. And you did once on the Twitter account pitch that the end game of this podcast is to do Christine versus Dominic Toretto. So
That is true.
Listen, all the more reason, if this is your first episode, please stick around. Are you afraid of the dark universe? This new world of gods and monsters is just opening up. This is only episode 18 of the show, which, as we've established, will run forever.
Listen to the previous episode where Dylan wrote literally a full-ass musical with, 4 songs?
3.5 original songs.
Incredible.
You know what? If you're listening also, you are perhaps, instead of being new to our show, you are new to our guests. And I want to give our guest, Mattie, an opportunity to pitch their book, which Dalton and I have both had the privilege to read and really enjoyed.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Mattie, I didn't tell you. I did read. Dylan gave me his
your publicist
Ooh.
emailed me to send me a copy of the book like a month ago, and then I shared it with Dalton, which is, I don't know, probably against the rules, but who cares?
I pre-ordered it already. I pre-ordered it.
I put in a lot of protections. I didn't want Dalton to ever read it.
They're like,
Yeah, like I hired someone to like watch their house.
Well, I didn't like the 6-page run where I am graphically disemboweled in like photographic detail. I've never seen you cartoon those look like photographs.
Most of it, I don't know if those of you who are listening, most of the book is very much in line with sort of the usual aesthetic of Mattie's political cartoons, although in greater depth and detail. But Dalton's death in the book is just like...
Yeah,
it's some fucking
it's a little disturbing.
Bill Sienkiewicz
I wanted
shit.
the reader to feel like they themselves were Dalton dying.
Okay. In all seriousness, Mattie, please tell our listeners about Boys Weekend.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's sort of like a final girl story about a trans family who goes on a bachelor party trip as the best man and has a terrible time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of like seasteading Las Vegas in the near future. And it gets worse from there. And it comes out from June 6th. Comes out from June 6th, everybody, on Pantheon Books. You can get it wherever comics or books are sold. Your local bookshop is great. Your local comic store is great. If not, bookshop is right there for you. Pre-order it early and often, in my opinion.
All fans of this show should pre-order it right now. It is really, really, really good.
June 6th happens June 6th happens to be my birthday, and so for my birthday, what I would like you to do is to buy Boys Weekend for one of your friends. I already have it.
And Jaya, what would you like to promote?
I don't have anything to promote. If you want to read some of my food rating, you can find me on eater.com. You can also find me on Twitter, goofing off. But I'm thirding everyone to pre-order Mattie's book.
Good.
Yeah, it's really
but
terrific.
Jaya's writing is incredible. Read her work on Eater. It's very,
and that's
very
spelled
good.
like a normal human being, not like a dating app for foodies. It's EATER.
No, EATER.
Yes.
Like a normal word. A
yes.
word that we all know.
America's best food writer, I'd say. I think
so.
Thank you.
I
in
agree.
my opinion.
And
very little writing about snakes in her work, which I think
that's about to change. I think
in the coming weeks,
I'll work on that.
In the coming weeks, I'm sure we'll skyrocket as you've got snakes on the mind.
I was going to say, you two are America's best snake body horror Lega sequel writers. I think.
Thank you so much. Thank
The
you.
anthology comes out every year and they've never recognized us.
We're very excited to have you on our sort of development team now. And we would happily invite you to come back and pitch anything further if you have more ideas for Universal properties we can reboot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Preferably something that is available to watch somewhere.
No, that's my one.
Jaws next. We're going straight there.
Going to what?
We're doing Jaws and he's driving the truck from Duel.
Perfect. So now we've got in development. We don't know that we're making it canon yet. Don't put in the wiki that it's canon. We're going to wait to see a screenplay, but it is something that's on the table for us here in the Dark Universe. Let's move over now to our mailbag segment and see what people have been saying to us. Dylan, what are the fans thinking?
Well, first of all, I want to give a really hearty thanks to everybody who's been celebrating Phantom of the Opera with us. We've gotten so many really lovely messages and tweets about people freaking out at the 25-minute mark of the episode. Also, thank you everyone for respecting the spoiler embargo for the first 3 days after release.
Yeah.
Nobody, so far as I know, had any of the twists spoiled from them before the Tuesday after. And that's really great because up until that point, we were getting DMs and Discord messages and texts from people we know saying, I just got to the big reveal. Oh my God. And that's, first of all, very flattering, but also thank you all for preserving that for each other because that was really exciting. We also got some notes from fans about a couple ideas that we mentioned on the episode. For one thing, a couple of people online mentioned the Goosebumps book, The Phantom of the Auditorium, which is the 24th book in the Goosebumps book series by R.L. Stine, which is basically this premise, although they can't use the name The Phantom of the Opera as the musical, as the play. But the idea is that somebody is haunting a school play, and it kind of mirrors the plot of the Phantom of the Opera. So that's pretty close to our idea.
Basically, we have to throw out your whole episode.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to. It's plagiarism. We got to start over. Sorry.
They also made a TV episode of the Phantom of the Auditorium.
I read that when I was a
TV
kid,
show.
but I did not remember that. I read all the Goosebumps books. Does that surprise you to learn that about me? That I was a Goosebumps kid?
Also, our friend Joseph Angel mentioned to us in the DM, you might recall, Dalton, that we were frustrated that we didn't find a place for Teresa, Rachel Bloom's character, our musical episode, which is a shame because Rachel Bloom is a songwriter and a musical theater person who created Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, a TV show made entirely out of musical episodes.
And I just want her to interact with Carol.
Yes, and we might still have that happen. But Joseph Angel DM'd us to say, Teresa could be brought in for a musical number as defense attorneys for Actors Equity or representing the families and have a whole musical number called No Comment. And I have been thinking about that, the idea of having this sort of cutaway and having her be sort of a special guest star. And at some point during the second act, when maybe against the backdrop of the crew trying to prepare for the new musical, trying to put on Erica's thing, that we are then, one of the ways we get exposition out and to lighten the mood a little bit, we have this extremely Rachel Bloom musical number where she's in like full fucking Henry Hill mode and fielding all these questions, and that would be a way to put her in the movie. And I think that's a really great idea. And if we were to ever to expand it, I would love to incorporate that.
That would be great. I like that idea. Anything else?
That's most of what I have to talk about today. Most of them just had a lot of really kind words. So if you want to reach out to us about this episode or any other, please hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at Dark Universe Pod. You can join our Patreon and join our Discord at patreon.com/Dylan and Dalton. That's DYLANANDDALTON, and join our community for $5 a month.
We are only about 20 patrons away from doing a bonus podcast.
Less. I think we're 15 patrons away now from getting to launch Are You Afraid of Dylan and Dalton, the companion podcast that is legally distinct from this one.
And that might be smaller by the time you hear this because we're taping this in advance. So we're really close to adding a bonus podcast where we can do all kinds of stuff that we don't have time for on this show because we're
Dalton wants
focused on
to
the pitches.
Yeah, Dalton wants to pitch their Lost spinoff. We want to talk about Tales from the Crypt.
We want to just talk about also just recent movies and horror and
the Pope's Exorcist.
we want to talk about the Pope's Exorcist, an entire Pope's Exorcist podcast. No, but we're very close. And we recently did a Discord hangout where we streamed the 1925 Phantom of the Opera, which is in public domain, so I can talk about it. But we do other live streams, maybe one that will be relevant to this episode. So come hang out with us in the Discord and help us get to our goal, where we will start making our bonus podcast. And stick around in 2 weeks if you liked this episode, because I will be pitching my take on The Bride of Frankenstein, which will be a sequel to our very first original Dark Universe movie, Frankenstein, and will not be a musical. I'm going to let everyone down about that right now. It's not going to be a musical. But at the 25-minute mark, you will find out in a huge twist that I have made all of Lord of the Rings canon in the Dark Universe. No, I'm not going to have a big twist to rival Dylan's, but I think it's a really solid pitch. And I do think it will be very surprising.
Dalton, do you want to prime our listeners with your choice of director?
Sure. I have decided that the director of The Bride of Frankenstein is not going to be Andy Muschietti, who directed the first Frankenstein. We have been on such a good kick in phase 2 of having directors who are not all white dudes, and I wanted to keep that going. And also, I think this director will be a good fit. Her name is Lee Janiak, and you may know her as the director of the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix. And she also did a great little micro-budget body horror film called Honeymoon, starring the girl who played Ygritte on Game of Thrones. And Honeymoon, I believe, is available to stream on Peacock. And the Fear Street trilogy, of course, is on Netflix. So if you want to watch either of those movies to prepare for The Bride of Frankenstein, you may do so.
All right, and that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks, everybody, for listening to this latest episode of our show. And until next time, stay afraid of the Dark Universe.